Friend, but now I'm hesitant. Hey yo, can we?
Human families of the planet Earth, how are you? You're now tuned in live to Super Heru Radio. I am your host, Aseer the Duke of Tears, along with my co-host, the leader of the Emperor 10,000 years, Saga Assad, Little Amor, Ali Cordoba, the Prince of Tears, all of you, you wonderful original people, and for all of our visitors that's tuning in and listening on the piggyback, what's up? Also, definitely give respect and praise to anyone who lost anyone recently. I want to give thanks and praise and love and life to one of our listeners in particular. She just went through a major situation health-wise, but she's doing a lot better. Blessings to her and her family out there in California. Definitely love and light, and love and light to you and your family at this time. Also, love and light to the brother Chris Kelly from Crisscross, his whole family. You know what I mean? They just went through they loss of the young brother who had been through so much in his young life, as well as making history. You know what I'm saying? For our people again in the entertainment industry, and for those people who want to definitely, God bless his life. Definitely want to give thanks and praise to that. Also, condolences. Also, anybody else that's going through any hard times or whatever, we want to offer our prayers and love and light out to you and yours, because not all the time we take this time out, especially in venues like this, to offer each other spiritual support, which is just as important, if not more so, than physical, because it's not localized to exactly who and where you are geographically. So I definitely want to get that all out. You know what I'm saying? What else is going on? Okay, so a lot of wild stuff is always going on that we always try to or strive to stay on top of and get everybody understanding that there is a method to the madness that you see out here going on in the world, and that it's also not just as random acting or seeming as we believe it to be, or it sometimes is led for us to believe. So as we brace ourselves for another false flag attack that they're about to do on their so-called populace, we need to understand, and we went into greatly last week in depth-wise, for those people with the ears to hear it, heard it last week as to why our people are in this position, because we hear so many other people give us so many reasons as to why our people are so disenfranchised, so put at odds with each other, when really we don't really look at the basic reasons to the present conflict. To the present conflict as it relates itself to our present world position. Our world position being that of at the bottom of the top of the bottom, meaning that there's so many things that our people contribute and have contributed to the world that we are the first people of that. And unfortunately, we're in this trick style society that has everybody believing that they are entitled to the same thing that everybody else has. But equality don't mean being equal. Equality means being equal in all points. Look at the universal flag, or the flag of universality that we manifest as. That flag has 8 points. Therefore, equality, autonomy, we're building and destroying. You know what I'm saying? Bringing things from one state to the other. Getting rid of that which you do not need to add on to that which you do. These maxims of law are the general consensus of what it is to be a loca frutizitis obsita, meaning a Moor. That's the Latin way of describing you. There are other shorter terms, like Morris or Marius, Magnus, Magnus, Maximus. All of these words mean more, but specifically, the loca frutizitis obsita is really a more indirect or direct version of how to describe, again, one with a true eternal national character. And that's what the Moors, regardless of how obscure they want to make our history here, really provide to the world, not just the United States, but the world in general. You know what I'm saying? Okay, she'll get you in a second. Yes, you come right now. So, essentially, this is what has become the basis for us to be able to unify around a common idea. And that's the one thing, if you've been as melanated as I have all these years, you would see that this is the one thing that labors our so-called ascendancy into the world stage, is the fact that we are not unified behind one central idea. And the reason for that is it says that we trust, actually. You know what I'm saying? Yet these Sestri trusts that were initiated, if upon further review and inspection, you will find that some of the grantors of those trusts were you. It's actually you. And that you had to put provisions out there for those people who had been placed beyond the sea, because they were now taken outside of your jurisdiction, or the jurisdiction that you both shared as nobles under the grand society together. Once they put themselves beyond the sea and you stayed on the land, you are now cut off from being able to communicate via direct communication. Now all your communique had to come through things like Pony Express or carrier pigeons or messages in a bottle or whatever it is, or however you contact people stranded or marooned on an island or an inlet or a peninsula or an isthmus or an Isle of Man specifically. And this has become the general basis as to why a lot of the situations that we've been in as a people have been so obfuscated, because we can't communicate with each other because we're not speaking the same language. The land of the living can never interface directly with the land that is dead. You cannot do it. And there's never been a time in which one has been able to do things like that and actually see some sort of return or exchange from that. And so when you're dealing with the civically dead, you are dealing with the zombie. You know what I'm saying? And that, unfortunately, is the state, the hostile state that exists amongst the original people in this landmass, as well as on this rock that we call Earth. So, again, because a lot of us don't really get into history or black history, or Moorish history, we co-sign it as like being Moroccan is in some way being synonymous with something that we aren't. We are in a situation where we are constantly playing catch-up with who and what we are. That's why original people only every 25 years call themselves by a different name. Because every 25 years a new name is promoted by the corporation as a means to perpetuate the idea for the new corporation. I mean, it's to the point where Pat Robinson just came on TV and did a whole tirade on Margaret Sanger and how she basically, because she was a Klanswoman and she was there to help degenerize and get rid of as many undeclared Moors as possible, what she wanted to do was basically get a so-called leader from amongst us and get that leader to propose and promote eugenicism towards everyone else. I mean, it's to the point now you're still getting daughters of men and women, they still naming their babies Eugenia and things like that. And they don't even know that this is all in response and celebrating this entity. Margaret Sanger, who really worked as well as she could to get as many black people to euthanize themselves as possible. One of the main proponents and partners of her endeavor in that regard was W.E.B. Du Bois, who, along with Ida B. Wells, Henry Moskowitz, and a couple of other so-called Jews, created what's called the NAACP, which is why I've never seen, as long as I've lived in the ghetto or any ghetto in the United States, I've never seen the NAACP do anything to help me or anybody in my community. What I see them doing is creating a pseudo-standard for certain members of the community to do that. So, like, I never saw direct NAACP intervention. Yet what I did see was a bunch of card-carrying members of the NAACP in certain cultural events that I happen to also be in. And knowing that one of the prerequisites of being Boule direct is that you have to be a card-carrying member of the NAACP, it totally made sense to me. So because W.B. Du Bois agreed to be that black intellectual to spearhead this whole movement, the results of the whole system turned into what it is today, which is a lot of black self-sacrifice. It's a lot of black self-sacrifice and a lot of internal strife going between and amongst each other. So let's do the knowledge. You know what I'm saying? Let me get to the point. Okay, just so you know, according to the appropriate definition of capital for federal budgeting, including the use of capital for federal government itself or the economy at large, ownership by the federal government or some other entity, defense or non-defense capital, physical capital, and intangible or human capital, i.e. distinctions amongst investments in and for current, future, and retired workers, distinctions between capital to increase productivity of capital, to enhance the quality of life, which is the system they started running in New York first initiated under Rudy Giuliani in modern times, and existing definitions of capital for budget. Therefore, U.S. citizens are listed as human capital, i.e. property, i.e. one must declare oneself to be of the temple, of a specific temple or outside entity to not be lumped into the presumed jurisdiction of human capital being put forth on pseudo-citizens of the United States on behalf of said government that does not exist. Why does this said government does not exist? It does not exist under the law of nations. It exists under the law of necessity, i.e. because we walked out of the Continental Congress in 1787 and under Article 6, hence the Constitution, the first bankruptcy of the United States occurred in 1788. So forget 1933. You gotta forget 1933 because 1930. Okay. So 1933 goes down. That was actually, I think, the second bankruptcy. The third one was the War of 1812, where they denied the British to be able to have a bank. Okay, we're dealing with real life, real law, and real history, not what they talk about. Now, what you got to do the knowledge to is there was 21 loans that the United States of America received from the King of England dating back to February 28, 1778. So ask yourself this: if they declared their independence in 1776, why were they accepting a loan from the same person that they were breaking away from in 1778? I'll ask the question again. If the bankruptcy occurred in 1788, this bankruptcy in 1788 occurred against the United States based upon the United States of America, which received 21 loans of silver from the king of so-called England, dating from February 28th to 1778 through July 5th of 1782, the repayment of which had been ratified by the Congress on January 22nd, 1783. The United States Bank, created in 1791, was a private bank. Listen to what's going on. Listen to what's being said. The United States Bank, created in 1791, was a private bank with 18,000 of 25,000 shares owned by England. The 18,000 of the 25,000 shares owned by England. So what does this mean, brothers and sisters? This means that the Treaty of Peace and Friendship that you talk about is between His Britannic Majesty, that your man George Washington was asking reconciliation from, was actually an agreement between you and the kings of England directly as means of how the United States would pay back the debt to both of y'all. Because remember, at the time of 1774, there was no United States of America. When you created the Articles of Confederation, which is the Free National Constitution, there was no United States of America existing. So how could you be bonded to a country that didn't even have a name yet? The style of the Confederacy that you created was called United States. General Congress assembled, meaning that it was there to perpetuate a certain idea and standard amongst the pseudo-citizenry that existed. But the citizenry at the time were all slaves of England, remember? But you were not a slave to that English lord because you were not a vassal. You did not come over here and have to live on that colony. You always existed here. Therefore, when it comes to now, if we go into the future and project this further now, and we reanalyze the so-called Emancipation Proclamation that some of these Moors are trying to tie themselves to directly as the only artifice, what you would be saying is something totally different. What it will really be saying then is that if you had a constitution that was in play for 1774, and you had international agreements starting with the so-called British government that was in against the so-called United States from 1751, right? At what point were you, as an Al-Moroccan, ever a slave? You weren't. You could not be, because you were the one that was giving people the right to be free and going against your brothers and sisters who were in the so-called slavery or slavery business, while at the same time striving to hold on to the center of the empire while it was being eaten away from the inside due to the political infighting of different Moors from different territories who were now working against the overall whole because they wanted to create satellite empires that they could rule instead and allow their so-called new compadres to come back up with them. You know what I'm saying? And that's not cool. Because all that did was created a perpetuated system of states of instead of the state. So there is a real country, and then there's the de facto one, the de jure one, and the de facto one. The one that is prior, the precept, and the one that came after, which was there to preserve the precept. All based on the loaning of money. So based on that, this agreement then that set up no de jure constitutional Congress has really existed then since March 27, 1861. That's when the 7 southern states, a.k.a. the several states, a.k.a. the Circle 7, walked out of the actual Congress of the United States of America in General Congress assembled. The political body of the Societas Republicae y Alemanes Congress Estados, which gave birth to the Union of the Six Nations, which then gave birth to the Iroquois Confederacy, which then gave birth to the United States in General Congress Assembled, which then gave birth to the United States Congress, and then finally the Congress of the United States. Therefore, that whole thing was left in a state of sine die, meaning until we meet again, no definite coming back together. And so when that happened, the country went into overall free fall. And so the country that was trying to establish itself under that saw this as the time for them to come up. And so they then petitioned to act as the demonstrants or the concierge of the so-called Moors of this hemisphere. If those Moors who were not directly attached to that agreed to come into their country, in which they would promise to receive more gold for the labor in the United States than they would be receiving in the country that they were coming out of, which turned out to be a lie, you know what I'm saying? And these people got bagged up. So once the Congress ended the quorum meaning the core, the fulcrum, the base of the founding fathers, or what the planters or the original people, the great gods and lords, what they called the vanquished American dukes, had left. Instead, when they walked out, that which is called the Congress today assembles and acts under the authority of the president, acting in capacity of being commander-in-chief of the armed forces under the emergency war powers rule, i.e., the law of necessity, i.e., no law under Statute 12-319, which has never been repealed and also exists under Title 50, U.S.C. 212, 213, 215, Appendix 16, 26, Council for Relations, CFR, Chapter 33.16, subsection A. Okay? That's who these people are acting like. And they all know that what they're doing is illegal. But because they all agreed to be illegal, then that means that they don't have anybody to treat them right unless you take it out of their state level. The state people are the people that's blocking you, that's baller blocking you. The federal government, these people know who and what they could do and who and what you are. So, like I said, from the above referenced date, Moorish Americans have been under the fascist rule under the via presidential order, under the aforementioned War Powers Act that was supposed to be deaded after the Civil War. But it went into a perpetual aspect on December 6, 1865, when they erected the 14th Amendment, which was proclaimed ratified, but it never was. Also, the 14th Amendment was a Jesuit artifice that was injected because it was established through a sesqui trust, which was a PCT, which is a public charitable trust, that was expressly designated to bring all the artificial persons called citizens and make them citizens of the United States. And then once they became citizens of the United States, they would be declared enemies of the United States, in which the United States could inflict and thrust the war powers on them, which would then allow the United States to rule de facto as a pseudo-corporatocracy. It's real talk. It's an express trust. Legal ownership is transferred by the written contract by the grantor or the trustee, but there ain't no grantor in a sesqui trust because the sesqui trust was written based on those who were lost beyond the sea. The original sesqui trust of 1666 was basically the redress of the inconveniences and a wanton proof of the deceased persons who existed beyond the seas or who absented themselves upon the lives of the estate that depended, meaning that when they created when we were going going through the situation of extending our jurisdiction and declaring our independence, those Moors who were now under the jurisdiction of these people who were from Europa were no longer under the jurisdiction of that, because there was nobody that was holding on to the estates that were over here, because all the estates that were pledged over here had to be transferred over into real property. Therefore, being put into real property, they could not afford or be in a real. It couldn't be a straight estate. It had to be taken out as a realty, because the people were either dead or no longer heard from. Therefore, the money that those Moors from Europa put up for their descendants or whoever to have something here had to be regressed by the government, i.e. the king, who secured all of their interest in those 21 loans that he gave to them at the time that they allegedly was all fighting each other. Think about that. So something had to be done. So they created, I'm sorry. So he said, or it created an instance where they could not function in the right body, meaning themselves. So they had to come up with something. So what they came up with was that anybody granted beyond the seas past 7 years was now considered naturally dead. Therefore, anybody walking around on the property of those people who were now considered dead could be treated as the debtors of that based upon them being the assignee. Okay? So what it basically says is, and I quote, and in every action, well, boom, if such person or persons whose life or lives of such estates have been or shall be granted, as aforesaid, shall remain beyond the seas, or elsewhere absent themselves, meaning not in a right mind, not in a proper person, not under their true nationality, in this realm, the realm being the realm of the crown being the actual art interface for the European Moors to pay tribute to the Almoravian Moors. And that state being put into contest ever since the Crusades, of which the Order of Christ wanted to break the Order of Islam. Therefore, once those people were taken out after 7 years together and no sufficient evidence or proof be made of the lives of such person or persons, respectively, in any action commenced for the recovery of the tenements. Don't they put residents who live in certain places, don't they call those tenements? Which means like a funeral home. Tenements by the leaseors and revisioners, meaning the people who own the project. Right? So the estate dependent shall be accounted as naturally dead. Yet you are living, but you are civically dead, separated from your body. Your soul is taken out of your body. Therefore, you are a zombie walking around. And in every action brought for the recovery of the said tenements by the leaseors and revisioners, their heirs, and assignees, the judges before whom such action shall be brought shall direct the jury to give the verdict as if the sole person remaining beyond the seas or otherwise absenting himself were dead. Meaning that if you are a 14th Amendment citizen, such do we trust, then you have absented yourself, meaning you're not in your right mind. You are absent of your right mind, therefore you are a minor, and therefore you are reduced to that of, as you even see further now, beyond this now, to human capital. Even further now, because now they want to create improvements. They want to actually hook up a machine to the zombie and make the zombie make money for it now. This is evidence of the United States being able to conduct business on behalf of its citizens by using its citizens as enemies and bounties at the same time. That's why the bounty hunter thing was big over here. It's not so big in Europe and Africa and places like that. You can't really do that to certain nations over there. Very different in terms of the energy. Therefore, the only way not to be lumped up as a citizen or into one of these traps is to know how it is and which way that you're functioning. Now, we also know that at the same time they were fighting wars against each other, there were elements within elements that were working together to break the nationalities of us, the Moroccans over here, specifically due to our universal influence all over the world, by freeing everybody in the world, by being the first to declare this openly based upon the international treaties and ties that we already had based upon our satellite kingdom over there in Grenada. But because those Moors fell to the Spanish Moriscos, those Moriscos then carried that aspect of what they knew into the so-called New World as conquistadors and thrusted themselves or made themselves into and married themselves into the so-called, what they call the so-called Aztec, which is really, to them, was the Toltec. And then made them change one of their gods from Quetzalcoatl to Kukulkan, KKK. And this god was the one that started to initiate the human sacrifice, which then led the Catholic Moriscos to then step in and label them all as heathen and then break the temple by ransoming Montezuma, holding him hostage, which was the first royal kidnapping in history. Well, on this side, which then ushered in the whole system of now coming in and taking the Orthodox Moorish American kings and queens and shipping them out. And then when they get off the boat in Portugal, they're Indians. And then when they get off the boat in Tripoli, then they're Muslims or whatever else. And then gradually, Morocco, as a universal, perpetual state of being and mind, which is carried out through the Moors all over the world, then starts to get reduced to the dominions where the so-called Moors or Moroccans exist. Exactly. Yeah, so essentially that's what the whole thing is kind of busting down to. It's a understanding of so-called humanity against the corporate agencies that were created to, at first, shepherd some original people out of it, but eventually wind up thrusting humanity as a whole into a system of perpetual bondage through zombification. And this ultimately leading to the destruction of nation states and dominions of the so-called empire as a whole. And then each one of us was then stranded wherever we were, and based upon that so-called government's acknowledgement or disacknowledgement of our true heritage and nationality, we were now lumped up with those so-called stateless persons that had been put under the various chattel designations from time before. Like the United States has yet to create a national referendum, or these so-called Africans or whatever have never created a national forum or referendum to finally abolish the word Negro in America, in the United States. You've never heard that, because that is the basis of the United States industry. The first commodity of the United States was not cotton or slavery. It was the Negro. The creation of a stateless person, while using that stateless person's birthright as a means to tie themselves to a landmass that they were never lords of, or were never in the midst of being able to control. So when you look at the line of descent in terms of what we would today call the very two empires that, or nations that they tell you was evil, were the very ones that were actually trying to help, like the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, or the Holy Roman Empire, or the Habsburgs, or what we call the Hanseatic League, right? The Khazars and the Tsars and them. They worked with the Abyssinians as well as the Russians, or the Kartlians, who became the Georgians, who became the Russians. So when you look at the line of Judah, or the Bay of the Eel, and now those lines that came from the royal house of Zara and Judah, they called the royal house of Zara and Judah the Scarlet Cord. And that goes through, in the Bible, that would be Genesis 36:26, I believe. From there, that's the Cretan kings, the Trojan kings, that's Agamemnon and Achilles and all of the rest of them, Socrates and all of that. Those two aspects represent the Yahweh, or the Bay line, coming from the line of Crete. These were the original descendants of those people who hopped ship off the Yaqub thing and eventually became the Minoans, Etruscans, and Corinthians, and Dorians, and all of that. They were also known as the Malaysians, or the Milesians, which again is Moorish. All of this is black, or melanated, I should say. From those three lines, the Cretans, Trojans, Milesians, you get the so-called Franks and the original Scandinavians, the Moors, the original Vikings, right? And from there you get the House of Skjold and the House of Wekta. Out of those houses comes the direct line of the kings of Denmark, and then the kings of what became Greece, all of which then produced Philip. That's on the Cretan line. The Etruscan, Grecian, Carthaginian, you know what I'm saying? All of that, that's more connected, right? That's the houses of Al Europa, the line of descent through Al Europa, right? Then you got the other line where you had the Zara and the Judah. Now you have the Pharez and the Judah. The Pharez, or the Fares, represents the Far East. The Far East represents us over here, but they write it Pharez, Fares or Fares, right? This is also Koresh, right? So this is where you get the high priesthood, right? This is where you get the line from David. Now you get Solomon, Nathan. Then on the priesthood side, you get Simon the Just, or who they refer to in modern times, Simon the Just. Out of Solomon, you get Zedekiah, right? Then from Zedekiah you get Joseph. That's Joseph and the whole Technicolor dream coat thing, the dream interpreter. Out of which then we get Joseph of Arimathea, who then begets Anna, who then creates Mary. They two then create Iosus or Isa or Jesus or whoever you want to take, the high priest, right? The King of Kings, Lord of Lords, Lion of the tribe of Judah. Out of that, through the Zedekiah line, we get the kings of Ireland because these are the ones who left. Because Jesus is coming from the line of David, who is also coming from the line of Cleopatra, or the line of the Cleopatras, as well as Ptolemy V. So this is the direct line of what we call the Sangreal, or the bloodline of the Moro-Vingians, or the Moors of the vine of Kush, who were the ones who left ancient Canaan here from ancient times and went over into what we now became the initial inhabitants of Africa and so-called Mesopotamia. And then lived there until they unified through the bloodline of Ruth, the Moabitess, to then ask permissions of the pharaohs of Egypt, Egypt being over here, and then became part of, started to come back over here, and eventually birthed what we call the Almoroccan Empire, which was pledged as a direct pipeline through the Ansaratic or Asiatic Brotherhood to bring Moors and people from that side of or coming from that Moabite line through here. So from the kings of Ireland, you get the kings of Scotland, and then this is where the British come in through Albert and Victoria by 1840. Okay. So we were all the way back in pre-ancient times. So I'm showing you that it wasn't until Albert and Victoria in 1840 that the Royal House of Windsor was then established, which was really the Coburg-Saxe-Gotha, the black family that they basically took the title from, and then became Windsors after World War II. And then from there, George V, George VI, and then Elizabeth II. That's the whole Almoroccan line. You see? So the House of Tudor, which is really descended from the Trojan kings, is really a descendant from the Milesian kings, which, again, were the Cretan kings, which were all the sea kings of the ancient world, which were all the traditional Phoenicians, Carthaginians, ancient Punic peoples or Romans, all descending from the line of the Elohims and the Bays. See, the Eels and the Bays, Elohim, Yahweh. Judah, or Judah, representing the lion share of, or the lion pride, meaning the pride of the great lion that we know as the great son or son of the widow, again, the Moor. So you are the so-called black nobility of the so-called Illuminatis that they leave out of all of the movies and stuff. Because you're not in your right mind, you're absent. You see? When we walked out as the 7 states, we became absent of what the actual foundation of the republic was then going to be set to be. We had to come into a being then to again resolve it. We never resolved it fully. All we really did was resolve the Articles of Confederation, which is why the white boys and nobody liked it, because it gave them no power. But in order for them to have power, they had to adopt it as the beginning of their constitution, because they had no country. Yet instead of them then allowing us to reconstitute ourselves, we took the time to step back, and while that was happening, they started to make side deals with these other Moors. And then once these Moors started to get bagged up and then started to get ransomed and shipped down south and all of that, they started to redesignate what that area was. So the Mississippi was also listed as the Atlantic Ocean. You know what I'm saying? and New York was sometimes listed as Morocco. See what I'm saying? And then Mississippi is then listed as Chickasaw County. You see, where they're bringing the goods in, not the people that they're shipping from up north that they're now redesignating on paper. And that once they get down there, they put through the brutalizing chattel situation to traumatize them from uniting and realizing what's happening to them. Because now they're being lumped up with people that they've been generationally now breaking down in this fashion. But the actual descendants of these Moors of the Confederacy is already tied up in what's already happening internationally. So a lot of them is already cool with it. A lot of them is okay with owning the slaves, white or black. They own white ones in the north and then own black ones in the south. But these are all undeclared Moors who never resolved their quorum since 1787. So now by 1779, they're all redesignated under the names that's being used in modern tongue, such as Negro, Black, African, color. And then they start to flip up how we are in terms of our perception. Yeah. It became a instance where they all had to agree through this masonry thing that this is how they were going to keep that secret. And Moors who went into their country knowingly and adopted that became the ones who helped perpetuate their dominance in terms of the corporate aspect of their society. So when you look at it, it's very simple. What happened is just we have yet to fully come into a state of unification as to what to do about it. You know what I'm saying? Formally. And until we do that, all of us in some form or fashion are on our own. And that's the reality. And a lot of the people have now become fed up based upon all the disinformation, which has been purposeful, but at the same time, it's also there for you to pick the reality out of it. You gotta understand that this thing has been going on. Thank you, man. This thing has been going on for about 175 to 220 years right now, in my opinion. But it might actually be less time than we be giving it. We may be giving it more time than actuality. Because if 1779 and 1865 represents 85 years, then that's the 85% dumb, deaf, and blind that Elijah Muhammad was discussing when he gave us the breakdown of the 5, the 10, and the 85%. You know what I'm saying? So you add on X amount of years from there, you get to see the scope in which people have been embroiled in the lie for as long as they have. Yet that has nothing to do with what it is you choose to do about it. Yeah. Mhm. So these time periods that we base the structure of their reality on is limited now to one's own perception of oneself. So if one chooses to identify oneself with an aspect of something that is not identifiable, then one falls into a congruent nature where you can be put in a stasis, and then whatever name that's used to describe that stasis is what you are. You know, so some dolls are cased in plastic while some are cased in glass. You know, you pay more attention to the ones that are in glass than the ones that are in plastic. But they're both in a box. So if that is the like what Kanye said, if they want us all in styrofoam, that's essentially what it is. It's trying to bottle and cap us in a way where we don't realize what we are until it's too late. And so, like I said, the state governments who have agreed to be lawless at this point are in collusion with this overall fraud that has been taking place for all of these years, of which all of these lauded officials and politicians have all been in on in some form or fashion. And that the stealing and theft of a country was based upon how it was reinvented after the original people who obviously were at the top were now placed at the bottom, which at the same time was a prophecy he set on them based upon their bondage of each other as well as the actual children of Yaqub. Because it just got to the point where they just started using them against each other. So on TV and in the movies, it looks like that they're all banging on each other and not liking each other, and it's the white man in control, but he's really just there on behalf of a family that you don't see. You know what I'm saying? So let's see if we get any calls. Anybody wants to call in, you can call in at 347-637-1184. 347-637-1184. Anybody wants to call in? Okay, there's a caller. 323.
Well,
Heru Radio.
what's up, Islam, brother? What's going on?
Islam,
Yeah, man, my name is Aurelius Thomas. Well, Aurelius the second. I'm calling from. I'm getting you two bucks.
can you talk a little further into the phone? You're kind of breaking up.
Oh, sorry, I'm on my celly. Yeah, my name is Aurelius Thomas the second. I'm from California, man. I'm happy to touch bases with you about some things, man. I've been trying to get enlightened. You know, I'm finally opening up to the consciousness. You know, especially out here in California, where it's kind of like ridiculed to the brothers that's out here. You know, we kind of need like a little bit more structure with that out here. You know, and I applaud you for everything you're doing, man. And I just wish you the better and bless your family and everything else like that, man. But I'm just really excited to talk to you, and I wanted to ask you some questions. I got like 9 bullets. If you wanted to run down some of them. You know, I don't want to take you off topic because you were spitting like some real knowledge right there about how they painted that big picture about us, you know, and how they're breaking it down throughout the tribes and the families and everything. But I got like one question, like, okay, I've been doing a little research for myself throughout these last couple of weeks because like last week, I don't know, it's a trip. Me and my girl sleep, and I had a big old headache, man. And I woke up, I took a couple Tylenol pills. And then the next day I was doing like this, I don't know, I want to say it's like a spiritual trip. For me, it's like I'm living in a dream. And it's like, I don't know, I ain't ate no food. I'm just drinking water and eating fruits. Like this naturally something to tell me. I'm not even feeling meat right now. It's crazy. And I'm just looking for answers, you know what I mean? And so like, I'm just like implying on what you were saying. Like some of my grandfathers are figuring out they was actually like doing lockdown down there in like the Dominican Republic. And my great-grandmother, like, full Cherokee. So I already knew, you know what I'm saying, within myself, you know, because I never really could feel that Christianity thing. Because, for one, how you going to tell me about Jesus Christ? He made of bronze, you know what I'm saying, hair with sheep's wool, and then turn around and show me some white-haired blonde, I guess. So I never really could get down with that. And, you know, the Nation of Islam seemed kind of rougher. But I knew it was something else out there, but I just kept myself humble. You know, I'm 31 now, but, you know, now I think it's like, it's opening up for me, the world, and then like on my spirituality level too, you know, so I'm just trying to see where I can base down on you on that. You can guide me any kind of like certain like techniques and I know I'm on food and stuff like that, and maybe like a couple things like the family. You know what I mean? Like you seem like you're pretty educated on the families and all that. So my last name Thomas, which is through my dad. Where he wasn't over here doing that. He was born I think 1886 in the Dominican. So I remember hearing somebody saying about the Moors going straight to the Dominican in Puerto Rico little region up there, and I was just wondering if I could get a little info on that.
Yeah, that's pretty much what was happening, man. Niggas was going wherever they had relatives that was still in a position of some sort of power. So wherever your people have been at, especially if they was in the United States or in the Americas, period, is probably where they always been at. But they just brought in the Africa thing because that represents the time in which that they have put you and made you absent of your true history. You know what I mean? Like they know that you don't know aspects of yourself, and they have hidden shit for so long that they don't forgot things about you. You internalize this now with them. You actually are hipping them and making them remember. So there's always a knee-jerk reaction to that. That's why we all gotta come in a manner that is responsive to what we want as an outcome, and not become so combative based upon their reluctancy to capitulate. You know what I'm saying? When you take this,
like a lot of work at it's like, something it's tough. But yeah, I understand what you're saying because like the other day, like I heard you talking to one of the brothers how you get in some of them cockazoids and you smash on them. Like I got one. I work around like I wouldn't say prestige men. I would say they act like the prestige. Like I deal with racehorses. You know what I'm saying? So you can kind of get a deal on what kind of people is around that. And
so they into breeding. So their families was into Mandingo breeding and shit like that back in the day. They just don't tell you.
Oh yeah, it's like they kind of still got that concept. You have a few brothers here and there trying to get in the business, but it's no way. It's so suppressed to where a brother could even think about it. I've been doing it a long time. My dad did it. He was successful at it. That made me keep pushing for it. But then at the time, thinking like 2000s, they lighten up. Maybe they start accepting it. But as long as you keep that mind frame of being accepted, I think you're gonna stay in that reality waiting. You know what I mean? So now I feel so much better and enlightened. You know what I'm saying? I'm about ready to quit this. I mean, nothing really is giving me any kind of worries because I know I'm capable of doing anything. I've been from the bottom up. You know what I mean? I mean, it's tough. It's a tough world, but you got to be tougher. So I'm already worried. I'm already expecting for the worst to happen. But you know what I'm saying? I'm always hoping for the best. But saying that, I'm dealing with guys at 60, 70. They don't really know. You know what I'm saying? Then, like you said, you drop them bombs on them, they back up. And then they come to you. They be like, oh, so what else you got to say about it? But then now I'm like, I ain't saying nothing because I see you don't know. So if you don't know, that means I got a right to take over the throne from wherever you thought you had it. So, you know what I mean? This is the whole thing, empowerment.
Right.
And I'm loving it.
And that's where we're at now. That's why in all of us getting everybody's shit together, it allows them to function in the capacity that they wish to without endangering.
I love that, man. I love that because there's so much going on. Like, people don't know, like, Homeland Security, I heard, like, a month and a half ago, bought a bullet. Well, like, I know in Cali, you can't buy no bullets, like, for nothing. Besides the gun laws, they smashed on all the bullet sales, like, off top. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, they spent, like, $1 billion or something on bullets. They say there's enough bullets to fight the Iraq and our war for 10 more years. But it's for Homeland Security. I'm like, what's up with that? So I'm like, they know something. You know what I'm saying? And they're like, people in Cali kind of feel it. I mean, y'all on the East Coast, it's getting down on the East Coast, but on the West Coast, it's like kind of shaky. Unless you go up north, you go to so I'm from the Bay Area. You know what I mean? So it's kind of different. You know, like if you go up there, you probably be like, wow. I mean, I don't know if you've been there, but I mean, dudes wearing we've been wearing turbans since 2001. You know what I'm saying? Dreaded out. You know what I'm saying? Smashing on the pigs. I mean, if you take the news, they smashing on pigs up there. You know what I'm saying? They could just get like, I'm in LA right now, but like I was just like taking like a little some kind of like a outlook on what they're really doing. You know what I'm saying? And like it's the whole from East Oakland to West Oakland to North Oakland. I mean, they redheads already, brothers. You know, we already had nature. We already felt like that's the movement, so they couldn't tell us nothing. You know what I'm saying? We turn cars over. You know what I'm saying? We wild out on it. They got to bring in like all kind of extra help when we get it going. So, you know what I'm saying? I'm already on that radical movement to not believe in the falsehood they've been trying to paint. You know what I'm saying? I was always wondering why I was always like this. You know, for me, being me.
Oh, damn. I'm sorry, bro. Oh, damn. I'm sorry, bro. The whole thing went down. But I appreciate it, man. And, you know, hold it down for everybody out there in Oakland, because I know that's where they shot that brother straight on TV and had it on tape. And I think the tape got off for that. And that has never been resolved. And these things won't be resolved because people are still not listed as human beings. And that's what's really destroying humanity, is the fact that on paper, humanity has given up its soul to have a world government rule over it. But this government is a puppeted, mirrored version of what was going on prior to it. And the spell of Reconstruction was put on everybody to make them forget how things used to be or where things were supposed to go. Because a lot of us fell into the petty aspect of the prejudice. And then once the skin color thing became a part of it, it was pretty much over. Let's see if we can get somebody else. 469, on Super Heru Radio.
Hey, peace. What's going on? Can you hear me?
Peace, Mo. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing all right, man. My name is Omar, man. I'm calling out of Dallas, man. I was just calling just to ask you, man, when did being a conspiracy theorist become, like, mainstream? You know, I'm looking at all these movies from,
that, right?
Iron Man 3 to basically watching CNN, you know. That's like becoming the norm to be a skeptical person. So I'm like, you know, if that's the norm now, and I know Hollywood and entertainment got a attention span of, like, 2 seconds, so, like, what comes after that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a perpetual means of self-exploitation. If you are willing to debase yourself and sodomize yourself for public consumption, you'll always eat. And that has now created a situation where you got to look for the best of the worst stuff. So whatever's better than the worst is great, but it's not as good as it used to be, you know. So the state and the country that we lived in doesn't exist anymore. The only real state that was even existing at the time that we was in was our original state, you see what I'm saying? That has always been kept from us based upon a certain degree of self-ignorance or willful ignorance and institutionalized bastardization. Because it was like we started to enact systems to block them out. But then once we fell out amongst each other politically, they could then inject a way where it would then tip in the opposite direction. And then we would fall under that based upon, again, this trust that was set up. So all this conspiracy stuff that you're seeing now is just like the 9th level of the plan, where all of this becomes accepted upon fact, and now they can actually like make people want to be down with it. You know what I mean? Like there's people who want to do it. Like that guy that killed himself, who wanted to act like he was trying to do an Illuminati sacrifice and trying to kill the guy. They wound up shooting and killing him. Shit like that.
Mm-hmm. So it's like recruiting season, basically.
Right. But it's a willful recruitment. It's like you believe in it so much that you now are going to be an agent of it based on their version of it. So that means they done made you think that they created the pyramids, that that it's all about Freemasonry and not about Egypt, and that Egypt is really the devil. You know what I mean? So that's you. That's them getting you to denationalize yourself ideologically and then give them the credit, while at the same time giving them the credit of what your ancestors created that they are now acting as if they created. You see what I'm saying? So it's this giving shit up and then giving it to them, and then always being the black guy that helps get them to the end of the movie, or always being that nice black girl that's the friend to the white girl, or being the black chick in the Scandal TV show where she's willing to sleep with all the white men and all the white women just to get to the bottom of who killed this other white man. Like where's that?
Yeah. You know, and it just kind of make you just feel kind of isolated, man, because, like, you look on TV, and if you just consider, not even if you consider yourself a real person, like, if you know you just real and you do what you have to do as a person or whatever, it's like, what is there for you? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you like a real man or something like that, that shit ain't on TV. You got to be fucking, well, I mean, you just got to be pretty much as sticky as possible, you know?
But people only believe the things that they see. So some people only think that, you know, I do this, you know, on the radio, or, you know, I'm doing this to write books or whatever, when all of it is there to promote the same message in a manner the way that they did it to us. So that way there's something out there and in real time, in real language, that really kind of puts out what has happened. So this way, regardless of whether people want to accept it or not, it's beyond theory now, because this is real stuff. Like, this really happened. These things really happen. These are the laws that they're functioning under now. If you're in the West, they got you under the old Spanish land grants. If you're in the Midwest to the Middle East coast of the United States, then they got you under the French jurisdiction. If you're in the East Coast, except Florida, then that's all British. Up in Canada, that's all British. So
that's why
you a brother,
kind of got their own different little flavor, huh?
Right. So if you get arrested or locked down in one state, like New Jersey or something, and then this prison in this other country, the first thing they're going to do is follow the old pattern, which was what? Move you down south, move you somewhere else. That's in another jurisdiction now. People don't speak the language, does not really like you, don't understand who you are. And now they've sold their interest in you to the, let's say you got caught up in New Jersey, that's British. They sell you to the Midwest, that's the French. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Louisiana, that's all the French. So that's now the French getting a piece of your bond. And the French sell you to they transfer you to a Supermax out in California. And then that's now the Spanish buying the interest in you as the Autochtone Ancestor We Trust that was listed as this in 1666. That was really under them, which was really a trust that we set up for those of our relatives who fell under the jurisdiction of the white man. But wound up us getting none.
It's like the same shit is going on now. Ain't shit changed, just different outfit. Wow, man.
That's why you can
I had one quick point I want you to talk to you on, because I know you bring up Grenada, Spain a lot, but I want to get your take on the history of Grenada, the island down there in the Caribbean. Like, I'm not sure if you're aware of the history or not, of political history and everything. So I want to get your take on that. Ties into everything. If you don't mind.
Well, Grenada was going to be the Moorish Cuba. It was going to be the directly black Moorish Cuba, because the Moors out there was dealing with the flying saucers and all that shit that was coming down through the mistress of the mountains that lived up there, who allegedly was the last descendant of the Atlantean kings that I was talking about from the Faroese. Because Faroese, F-A-R-E-Z, also was like Pharaoh. You know what I mean? Which, once it was corrupted, became Pharisees in the modern tongue by the time of Jesus. But essentially, by the time of Cuba coming into its ascendancy like that, Grenada was next on the list. But because they had the hyperdimensional thing going on, the United States, through CIA, went down there and set up a university. And then, based upon them flipping their money with the Iran-Contra thing, they didn't want Cuba to annex itself or give its influence with Grenada, which was Grenada which again was descended from the old Moors of Granada who left, who already had lands over here connected to what was called New Spain, which we now today call California, which then became known as the Spanish land grant. You know what I'm saying? So they wind up becoming part of the overall canopy of what the New World was shaping up to be, which was going to be a corporate creation on a map that would have the geographic locations to set it out to be that. That's why all of the street posts is 30 meters in between each other. That's why all of the blocks, I think 124, 126 meters.
No, you're right. When they with the meets and bounds system or whatever, how they started off building a bunch of squares and townships. They say that's why the whole East Coast, everything is based on squares and grids.
Because they created the country based upon the mental construction of the Negro and how they was going to move it and split it up between the three factions. Get the book, 10 Years of Secret Diplomacy by Edward Moorally. And it will explain explicitly why they did it. This is why the Moors today have to come out of the domestic occupation of the pettiness of trying to establish little aspects of land where there's a greater estate waiting that has to be effectuated. But you can't use your estate to deal with commercial stuff. That's when you wind up getting caught up. So it's better to use instruments that work to verify who you are as the individual until the overall government comes through. That's why the Moorish Science Temple is there. The Moorish Science Temple of America is there as a means to let everybody know that it's about you establishing yourself, you know what I mean, openly without people trying to act like you're doing something to defraud somebody. You know what I mean? So, man. So, that's what that was about.
Okay.
All right.
Well, hey, I appreciate it, man, and I'm going to definitely check into that book, man, because you drop a lot of good books, man, and I'm trying to build up my mental and my vocabulary, man, from reading them books, man. So I appreciate it. I appreciate you helping me with the symbol literacy and everything, and I'm going to keep on listening and get some products from you, man.
Thank you, fam. Be safe and love and light, and we'll speak again.
Likewise.
Peace. Okay. (310) on Super Heru Radio.
This really is James Thomas calling back. I was calling from my cell phone earlier. I think I got disconnected.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was just I wanted to get back to some of them points I was trying to talk about. Like first, the spirituality point, like with the astrology, the signs. You know what I mean? Like I'm a Capricorn. You know, I read all kind of the similarities and definition of Capricorn. I always want to know like your outlook and your studies of the whole being a Capricorn and the spirituality aspects. For one,
Capricorn itself is a sign that's ruled by Saturn, which was also the chief sign of Noble Jew Ali. You know what I'm saying? So that's also a sign associated with the Moorish Science Temple, or Moors in general, which is also the goat, which is a symbol of Baphomet, which is really a symbol of Muhammad. Baphomet was really a code for the word Muhammad by members of the French Templar Order and the Scottish, so-called Scottish Rite Order. So the mantra for Capricorn is I use. So you have the ability to use anything to your advantage as a means to come up. You know, Capricorns are very good with their hands. They're very good at utilitarian type of tasks as well as high planning, you know.
Yeah, I always
also rules the skeletal system. So if there were any health problems or anything, you would look into the bones because the bones represent the foundation, and that's what Capricorn rules, you know. So it's not a very emotional sign. So a lot of times you'll be involved with people who are from a different, more emotional water type sign to understand emotion, whereas they may be with you to learn how not to be so emotional. You know,
makes sense, because my girl, she a Libra, and they say we compatible to certain points. We're not compatible.
yeah, because of the air.
Yeah, I've been with her for like 7 years, and I mean, like, she's like the best friend I ever had. We tussle when we just come right out of it, you know what I mean? Like, 1 minute we got ready to go to war, and then next minute we'll be, you know, just like nothing happened. So that's kind of like an interesting thing I always want to know too, because I heard so many of the cons against the Libra and Capricorn connecting, but I have a different outlook on that per se, you know. But knowing that now, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you know, and she does help me out with, you know, my emotion. I know I'm very unemotional, because like a lot of things I see, I really it don't really affect me. I mean, I grew up, I seen people get their heads blown out and like, wow, you know, I mean, I ain't saying I got no feelings for people, but like people be like, you know, sometimes I'm really emotional. It's a trip. Sometimes I'm really emotional, and sometimes I'm not emotional at all. And it's like, it's certain aspects of what outlook on life, I think, is from what I've been seeing in life. You know what I'm saying? Some things I get really numb to, some things I really have a big care about, and like especially with family. But you know, sometimes you know, family on your nerves too. But you know, you still got feelings for them. And I always did kind of have that outlook on life, on like plans towards the future. You know, plans for that is one of my aspects. And then the other question I wanted to ask you was
Capricorns deal with practicality.
Really?
What practically works. So you don't deal with much risk. Crazy shit like that. Like if it's not going to manifest as to something concrete, you don't really want to deal with it.
You can't run anything by me, because I'm going to analyze everything you're telling me from how you're walking towards me. You know what I mean? That's why it's from the streets. Like, even though like 31 years old, I ain't got no.
That's why the goat was seen as the devil, or used as the devil by certain people, and why the scapegoat was always the capital in that sense. So you understand the underworld to a certain degree as well. But you have the choice not to be it, you see. So that affords you a lot of respect from high places, but the immediate people around you always are kind of leery, because they don't never know if you're going to blow up the spot. Yeah, you're right. You're right, because, like, people I work among, they kind of, like, you know, they don't shy from me. They kind of, like, they treat me like a normal person, but, like, the people that are, like, higher ranked, they all, when they speak to me and they hold a conversation with me, because plus I speak Spanish, I mean, like, I know my great-grandfather was over there in the Dominicans, and my grandfather was in the Dominicans, but my dad is Cherokee and Dominican. But me, I learned Spanish on my own. My dad don't speak a lick of Spanish. And when I start talking Espanol, they be like, well, you know to put Espanol también. I'll be like, I just be speaking Spanish like crazy sometimes, and I go into a trance. But I'm always eager to learn a different language, and I always wonder what knack was that about me. First, I thought it was my interest in this learning. You know what I mean? Because I love to learn. I mean, I went to dental school. I just dropped out of that. So forget that. I went to carpenter school, masonry, window mason. Dropped out of that. Stuff started boring me, because it was always feeling like it was something else that I was supposed to be about. You know what I mean? I got to get other people on. Also, all right. Well, I wanted to ask that question, and and how about going about registering? Because I went down today to the county hall. I think I'm supposed to go to DMV or see a temple first, because they gave me some big runaround at the county, and they gave me some bar number that didn't even work, and everybody didn't know what I was talking about. So I was just trying to, besides, just ask you a direct question on how to really go about registering the correct way. Besides, I know through the temple, and then what else? Well, if there's a temple out there, you can check out the temple and, see what they say, and then take it from there. But if so, just email me at houseofel@hotmail.com. House of L? For sure. Yeah. I got you on the website. I'm probably hit you with a Facebook and all that, too. So, like I said, thanks for the info. Islam and Himotep, brother. Indeed, fam. Be safe. 567. You on Super Heru Radio?
Hey, what's up, man?
What's up, G?
Not much, man. This OB up here in Northwest Ohio.
How you?
Man, at work, staring at the moon.
That's what's up.
I had to come outside for a minute. Decided to try and call in. I'm a Capricorn too, and I had some questions about that, but I'll probably hit you up on the email with all of that. But what I want to know is I've been checking this information out, I say, since about 2008, 2009, but it's all been YouTube-y, you know what I mean? And I'm one of them YouTube all-stars. I done seen everything. And I done ordered some DVDs from people, this and that. But to me, it's like, I get it, but I don't get it. Because the one thing I don't understand is if everybody is on this same vibe or claims to be on the same vibe or the same frequency, then where is the representative from each state that got voted to represent that state to come out and meet with all the other representatives to get together to come up with a national set of guidelines or bylaws or whatever, or am I just missing it and it does exist? You know what I'm saying? And I just don't know about it yet.
That's a great question, man. There has been a lot of pushes recently of late of people striving to consolidate around a central idea, if you will. There's something supposed to be going on, and I think in Washington, and then I think something going on in Chicago. But at the same time, there are a lot of things, like I said, about the history that was purposely taken out of the vernacular of even the temples by members and people within the temples themselves, you know what I'm saying? And that led to a lot of the confusion and things that existed just due to the fact that not everybody was with the best intention. Because remember, we are all who we descend from. So whether we like it or not, some of us were descended from those Moors who chose to involve themselves in a lot of the foolishness that their descendants is perpetrating on those of us that don't want to be down with that today. You know what I mean? And they are often rewarded by the descendants of those so-called Caucasian Negroes who are now elevated to the stance of custodian over the so-called empire that we now are, in a sense, beneficiaries of, but have been separated from in terms of direct inheritance. Now they have those inheritances where, like, you could only get it after you reach a certain age.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's kind of like what's going on with this right now. That's why the prophet was so cold. That's why they don't want you to talk about him, but really get into what this man was doing, because essentially he was really the portal for all of these great men of that time that were producing the things that they couldn't necessarily contribute to or were finding out based on their allegiances with these dirty Moors or these European Moors or so-called European Caucasian people who are now acting as Americans when they're really citizens of the United States, who are really ex-slaves of the British king, who are now acting as the leaseors to the sister we trust that we set up to protect those of our brothers and sisters who became chattel to the so-called government of the United States. So really what's missing, to answer your question, is that so-called 400 years. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
But that 400 years that we're talking about in terms of our overall history is really a combination of years broken down in the sense that, like I said, 1779 to 1865, 85 years, and then add up 85 years to that 85 years to 2013. And then what do you get? All of these numbers are part of the spell. You know what I mean? That is
all right. That
we haven't been able to really break through because we haven't realized who or what the true 85% was. And the true 85%, dumb, deaf, and blind, are those 85 years that we have multiplied into 400 by falling victim to the hundreds, which is the name of the corporation, which is the Moorish name of corporations created through the British company that we created to get back our money from trying to help these niggas who were always slaves.
Yeah, because to me it seems like that's always the constant thread throughout everything that I have seen is that you got. To me it's like people only going after it for the money aspect of it, but
that's it. And
okay, so
they're not getting it. Not to cut you, but go ahead.
I know, I'm just saying, because it's like, don't get me wrong, like, I want money, I want wealth, but I'd rather have health. I'd rather have health. But the only reason why I want wealth is because I live in a place that's a capitalist society, and without it, you don't eat, you don't have electricity, you don't have nothing. So if I live somewhere where I didn't have that, then I wouldn't care about that.
Now, what if you could live? What if that place that you could live could be right where you at, but just not in the United States?
That's my next question. Is it going to be a nation inside of a nation, or are we going to move somewhere else? Because my thing is, I know it's a lot of people. It's a lot of people out here that listen, and it's not just me. I know that I still work a job. I still got a Social Security card. I still vote. Like I just voted a few weeks ago. You know what I mean? But I really know that it's BS. You know what I'm saying? And I want to pull out from it, but what am I pulling out to? A bunch of shiesty niggas arguing? You know what I'm saying? And debating? Or is these cats is really going to be on something that's solid that we can all stand up together on and that I can learn from it and they can learn from me from what God blessed me with? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I agree totally. Well, I can only speak for me. And as being somebody like you, who came up under the same type of system, who didn't really plan on doing something like this, what I had to realize was that the very same people who are in a position may not really know. And those that really know ain't telling me based upon what they see in me for whatever reason. So I can't get caught up in that. What you would be going into is, in the truest sense, would be going back into the free national government that left the quorum in March 27, 1787. When you become a free national of the United States, you do that by claiming ill or bay.
Okay.
That is a God-given right because the word American is a corruption of the word Moroccan. So we are in the perpetual state of Morocco because Morocco was shaped over into the citizens of the United States. That's why the Treaty of Morocco is the only treaty the United States has never broken, because if it really breaks the Treaty with Morocco, it breaks its own existence, and therefore it can't do that. So it can't deny Moors anything. That's why they had to write that in their legislation. But if the Moors were shaped over as Negroes, then they could do what they want to that. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when you vote, you are practicing, or what they say that you're doing is exercising your Fifth Amendment right, when essentially what you're doing is orchestrating an instance of fealty, because you don't really believe in the people you're voting for.
Hell no.
So that creates an instance where the institution, although being an institution, is not hallowed, it's not holy, it's not coming from God. So because the original American government was founded under the principles of a God, and you are the God that it was funded under, it has now turned you and I into the vassals of that.
Okay.
So the only way out is to declare thyself or come out of Egypt, children of Jerusalem, O ye children of Jerusalem. That's what this manifests as. Because, so in that, then what happens is, when done the right way, you can be who you've always been. The only difference is, we have a national flag, a national constitution, a divine national and international aspect, to your culture. You have the ability to treat unrenounced around the world with whoever you want to talk to. You can write letters to heads of state directly if that's what you want to do. You can, again, become tax immune, and not only just tax exempt, but tax immune to all of the excise tax, property tax, child support tax, all these other things that they do to United States citizens, because you are no longer a citizen of the United States. You see? So being a citizen of the original government that's listed on their money under the pyramid, you are basically listing yourself as a national treasure. Sure. As a national treasure.
Like the movie, okay.
Right. Which then allows you to you know what I'm saying, do what you need to do as a Moor and not have to worry about these people trying to lock you up or kill you under some Negro Act that has nothing to do with who you really are. They know they don't have the right to kill these people and all of that, but they're perpetuating a system that was perpetuated on them.
Okay.
That's why you have black people and white people doing that shit.
Right. Yeah, I bumped into a retired cop here in Toledo one night out having drinks with some of my fellas, and he told us that they got a quota, that they got it's like a secret club or a secret organization, and they got a quota, and if you don't harass so many black folks every day, like you slacking on your numbers, they turn their backs on you. You know what I mean? They might accidentally put a bullet in you when they're shooting at somebody else. You know what I mean? Like it's like they serious. Yeah. And he wasn't even near his retirement age, but he had to come out.
Mhm.
He had to come out. He said because it was just getting too crazy. And now recently by my house, we got two clubs that just recently opened up or started popping off, and they got people going there every Friday and Saturday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, and it's just police just swarming the area. And I don't live in the hood, but I'm not rich either, but I don't live in the hood. And I ain't never see cops out there till these two clubs opened up, and now they just everywhere, hide behind dumpsters, behind grocery stores, the whole nine, just everywhere, lurking.
Bugging, just waiting to incite something because they are creatures of law. Literally, they're creatures. They're not human. When you become part of that thing, there's a part of your humanity that's taken from you. And you have to comply to the people that you're in that thing with because they are the ones that are calling you your family. And
I started going to white bars a long time ago because the bars where the white folks is at, you can come out of there falling over drunk, sit in your car, throw up out the window and pull off, and you don't see no cops nowhere.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying? Nowhere. So when me and the whites go out, that's what we do.
They are listed under the jurisdiction of the custodian or the trustor. We are listed as the trustee, the beast of burden under Title 7 USC. Therefore, they, well, not us, but you know what I mean, people under that jurisdiction are under that, and that's what they treat them as. And that's why you hear these rappers call each other beasts and all of that all the time, because that's the Aleister Crowley demonstration. This is where the sorcery hooks up with what it is they're doing, the satanic aspect of what they're doing, because they created something called the Liberal Party, right? The Liberal, right? The Liberal Party is actually a reconstruction of the Liber Al. The Liber Al was a Crowley, Golden Dawn, Scottish Rite, satanic magic, sexual molestation, pedophilia ring that allowed them to create babies with all of these people through Planned Parenthood, and led to that operation that eventually led into what we call the Atlanta Child Murderers, or under a project they had called MK Naomi. So this long-term agenda against their citizens, mainly the so-called black ones, is really to depopulate descendants of the original government, you see, and keep them absent-minded so that way they never fully go back into the quorum and reinstate the original America, because that would then put them out of power altogether and put those descendants of that true government represented themselves as free nationals to do it. But Moors don't understand that international aspect of their character. So they deal with the domestic stuff, the traffic ticket stuff, right, the travel stuff, this stuff, because they got you thinking just here. When here is the birthplace, but there's a whole world where people remember who and what you are. But you can't get to it unless you break out of the system that they have us locked down in, up in here. That's why when Malcolm came back, he came back as a Moor. But by that time, he had already been in the Blue Lodge thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's caught up.
So after taking in everything that you just said, it sounds like to me that the current state of situations is that the government is ran by folks that are beasts, and they love blood, they're bloodthirsty, and so they're expecting people to react to them in a bloodthirsty manner. But what if everybody raises their vibration to love, but they can't because weed is illegal? You know what I'm saying? Because weed instantly puts you at the love vibration from what I've learned. So once that becomes legal, then everybody's on that level. Then it won't have to be no whatever. It can just be something negotiated that we do our thing here and y'all do your thing there.
But it don't even need that. It just need a bunch of knowledgeable Moroccans to leave the United States and go back into America. To do that, you got to be recognized as a free national of this place. But most black people have been put under the jurisdiction and the notion that that is some sort of traitorism. Like you are saying that you are like working with the man. But these is all the same niggas with government jobs and everything else, and you know is dealing with things from a face value level when you're not realizing that. If they telling you that their whole thing was based on the Iroquois Confederacy, and the Iroquois Confederacy came out of the Six Nations, and the Six Nations came out of the Societas Republicae Americanos Estados, and that's you, your government, then that means that when they talk about the Confederation and all that shit, they really talking about you. They're not talking about them. They got to reenact this history for themselves based upon their history coming to them from a reconstructed venue. Remember, they reconstructed world history for everybody.
Yes, they did.
So they make you think everything that they want. Therefore, now that you have been given a portal through something like Moor Science Temple, and you then realize the difference between the physical temple and you being the temple, you now can function as what you're supposed to be, which is a true and living Moor that functions in his right mind. Therefore, you are not absent, you see what I'm saying, of who and what you are, and therefore you are not the cess that we trust that they've created for you. So when you do things, or they try to, these Moors say to do things like, okay, we send you this and get rid of that, like you can do that, but if in the event that the shit goes down and they need, and the time comes for someone of the blood to come and step in as the government, they're going to go to those people that they already have that's listed as free nationals. And those are the people with the eel and the bay at the end of their name because they fought for it. The devil just not going to give you nothing. He been hiding it from us, but just look at this. This nigga's made us believe we was in bondage for over 400 years. When the chattel slavery only lasted 85 of that.
Yeah.
So Elijah Muhammad was telling us that the 85% is the dumb, deaf, and blind. The people who don't understand what that 85 years of chattel slavery did to us. And then what Reconstruction created from that, the Negro, of which it went from being a white man to being a black man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Almost overnight. Yeah. So essentially, that's just what it is.
I got one more thing to say real quick, and you don't got to respond to it, or you can respond to me off the air because I know people trying to get at you. It's a funny situation. My wife worked for the state. All right, she worked for Children's Services, and she calls me up and says she got a new case. There's a Moor. There's a Moor who's his baby mama. Him and his wife got a divorce, and now it's his ex-wife. she called Children's Services because the information that he's teaching his two sons is making them not like her and her side of the family and even the rest of his family. So, like, his side of the family and her side of the family is teaming up and called Children's Services, and she got the case, and she called me because she know I be checking, you know, y'all cats out. You know what I'm saying? She don't watch it with me, but she don't shun me for it. You know what I mean? Because it's actually made me a more calmer, better person because what I've already was feeling, I know I ain't crazy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so she was like, how should I handle it? I said, well, I mean, bottom line, if the kids is cool, then you got to understand what the information is. So I started telling her a little bit about the information and the history, and I told her how I felt when I was learning it. I was mad at everybody. I just wanted to go back to my high school, to my junior high, to my elementary, and go straight to the principals and smack them all down. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, of course I didn't do it because, you know, that's foolishness. It ain't solving the problem. Because the problem is way deep-rooted in that. You know, it's a spiritual battle. You know what I'm saying? So I told her, I said, if the kids is clean, they smell good, they look good, and they going to school, then leave the dude alone. And she was like, she was like, the kids are great, but what should I tell them? I said, tell them to leave them alone.
There's nothing that they can do because he ain't abusing them, and this now protects her because God forbid he's a more who really know what he's doing. He could put a lien on everybody and it really become an issue. And nobody could pay.
Right.
These Moors have made over $14.3 million. They have jammed up the system to such a degree that the white man's got to call Arabs for money. So they know, and the thing is the federal government knows. They know they don't have jurisdiction really to do nothing. Remember, J. Edgar Hoover was a Moor. This nigga, and this nigga ran the country, ran the intelligence for the country for over 50 years. Nobody could unseat him. He did what the hell he wanted.
Right. Yeah, I've been digging back in your archives because my work schedule don't put me in a situation to where I can, like, get in any classes or anything like that. So I went to iTunes and went all the way back in the archives, and I'm almost finished with the year 2010, and I'm just working my way through. You know what I'm saying? While I'm at work, just listening to see what's going on. I listen to you and Red Pill and Blue Pill. And
thanks for the support, man.
All three of y'all cats is real silly and spitting that knowledge.
I appreciate it, man.
All right, brother.
I really do. Thank you for calling, man, and kudos to your wife, man, for keeping it real and not trying to shut somebody down that's not doing nothing wrong.
Exactly. Telling the truth.
Indeed, man. Peace to you, my brother, and peace to your family.
All right. Back to you.
Okay. $225, you want Super 8 Radio? Peace. 225, you want Super 8 Radio? Three 347, you want Super 8 Radio?
Hello.
Peace.
Hey, what's up, my fam?
Hey, Queen, how you doing?
To you and the fam.
Peace to you. How you doing?
I'm fine, man. I just have one question. I just want to know if do you do readings over the phone or is it in person?
I mean, if the person's in the same state, I can do them in person, but yeah, I do them over the phone as well.
Oh, okay. Okay. And also, I really didn't want to get into it, but I just needed to ask you a question about the situation with Malcolm X's grandson.
Yeah.
And we all know what that's about, but I just noticed that a lot of, which I really don't like digging them up, it really doesn't matter, but I really noticed that a lot of the brothers that's supposed to be so-called conscious didn't even give their condolences publicly or even speak out about it. I noticed it's just straight ignored.
Yeah, G. But they can't
So
really talk about that.
Right.
You know, he was being herded in this direction from when that whole shit happened with the ritual with his grandmother.
I know.
It was all the payback from him going against that whole Prince Hall demonstration. His father.
Right.
So being he's the only male, he had to be brought as the sacrificial lamb, the sacrifice of Abraham.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? To bring forth Isaac or to bring forth Ishmael. So when they got him in, stopped him from going to Iran, that was to stop him from receiving one of the trusts that his pops had set up for him from them people when he became of age. That's why also that whole thing of knocking him down.
Right.
And when they flipped it, I think they orchestrated that whole shit, that whole fake film shit, to be able to bring him in.
Yeah, we know they did.
So that way they could set up the Mexican mafia, the MS-13 niggas, to come in and hit him up on some random shit.
Yep.
Because
and I noticed a lot of these so-called brothers are real Hollywood right now. It's just disgusting. I'm just so sick of it. I just can't.
That's what it's about right now.
It just made me real sick. And you called it as usual. You called it, and another brother called it, and just said they was just going to just start wilding on people, like hard body on original people, and they are like they're going hard. Like it's just crazy.
Yeah, and it's black people helping them because they descend from this side of the family that is against them, which again is the Children of Israel connection.
Yep.
That brought forth this European line of people that eventually brought forth the mixture over here in this perpetual chattel mentality that was used to keep a certain people out of the so-called mainstream.
And I know sneakily they're putting out a lot of, like I know there's a documentary that's due to come out soon called the Moors of Europe and stuff like that. And it's like even in dumb movies like the Smurfs, like they really touched on the Yacobian theory. Yeah. And the Smurfs too that's coming out. Did you see the coming attraction for that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was just like, I just be in here bugging because people don't see it, and I really see that they're starting to demonize the Moors, particularly people that call themselves by their true right. So they're really on track with the bullshit.
Right. That's
and it's just, I'm like, there has to be something to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because even my little sister, she asked me, what's some more? And I was like, she just came out of nowhere. She was like, what's some more? And when I explained, she said because she went online, and it was like a little small definition for other nations. But when it came to the Moors on Wikipedia, it was a whole 12-page thing about how the Moors aren't relevant and how it doesn't mean anything. Now, Wikipedia doesn't do anything 12 pages long, but it shows some 12, 13-page shit about the Moors basically saying it ain't shit.
That's right, because...
So why would you go so hard at something that's not shit?
You got to do that. Because in the United States, they've created a society that has no remembrance of it, even though it's right in their face. Everything that they walk around with and everything that they say is coming from our government. But because we, in a sense, abandoned our government, they have taken that as that we are absent. Therefore, we are absent-minded, and therefore then fall under the ward or Negro or chattel or beast of burden. Or
or minority, a child, a retard.
Minor, something that has kept and something that has hurted, even though we're the one that's taking care of them, because the only way they could stay here was by getting a black so-called descendant of the original house, having the transfer of ownership happen. The master becomes the slave, the black man becomes the butler, the white man becomes the plantation owner, and now they're listed as the Atlantic, and so forth and so on. So all we got to do is do it right, and we won't fall into the herd of everybody that they do it. Because regardless of what they say, the State Department know who you are.
Right.
You are.
Right. That's why I'm going to start taking your classes and doing what I need to do for myself and my 3 sons, because this can't continue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not going to function. And the Creator ain't bring us this far to leave us here. And those people who are traitors, and are out here promoting the false stuff and making the fake Moorish thing mainstream, they're going to be dealt with, because the white men know what they are.
Yeah. It's just disgusting just watching that emotion. You know, it's like, damn, like, you know, and people that look like you. It's just real. But it's still not going to deter me from doing what I have to do. Those are just signs and symbols that we have to do something.
That's it. That's all. And slow and steady with the race. That's what's up.
Yep.
So bless you and your family, man.
Same to you, babe. Be safe.
Peace to you.
Later.
So, yeah, everybody wants to get into any of the classes that we have that are functioning through the temple that is erecting itself out here. You can email us at houseofel@hotmail.com. And in that, we will definitely build on getting everybody as right as possible. Yet, we can't take fugitives. You know what I'm saying? So, we definitely aren't going to be involved in any of the foolishness that's going on. And there is a place for everyone to exist, whether any colorable organization likes it or not. And the same way it was set up one way, it's set up to do the opposite. It's all about who's in control. You know what I'm saying? And then by control, I don't mean in who's overthrowing this or that. I'm talking about who is understanding themselves enough to practice Islam in a manner to reconstitute the government as they understand it, as they know it to be. Therefore, in a system that was written, you know, it's from a quotation from a book before the close of 1865, the convention in President Johnson's so-called reconstructed state and given way to legislatures which proceeded to give ample evidence of the spirit that was in the South following the rebellion. And the spirit was plus hatred, animosities which war had engendered. These legislatures were made up principally of officers and rank and file of the Confederate Army, the original Confederate Army of the Articles of Confederation. So next week we'll get more into the Deep South and what that's about and other things. Anybody wants to send any donations, you can send it to dukeoftears@gmail.com. Anybody wants to check out the novel, you can go to www.darkskull418.com. Anybody wants to check out any of the older materials we have, as well as the compendiums and stuff, you can go to www.Aseer.com. Bless Malcolm X. Bless our sister in California and her family. Bless all of those who have been sacrificed needlessly for this corporate society. You will be avenged. And bless the Societas Republicae y Americanos Estados. And always we want to give love and light to the original people, the Asiatics. We love you, regardless to what everybody else say. True Moroccans, the Al-Moroccans, that's us. Let's unite. Let's get it right. Email me at houseofel@hotmail.com. And let's really maintain and unify so that way when it does go down, we are in the ability and the capacity to be able to help people, because we'll be in a capacity to do that, free of all the muck and the mire and the hatred, because we'll be dealing with love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, and equality, true tenets of an isonomy. Peace, love, and light. Inshallah, we'll build again next